we're going to touch on one of the magic elements, the mnemonic of the micro-learning module soon. I should have practiced that word in front of the mirror. We had quite a bit of fun internally at Ausmed when we were trying to come up with them, and it reminded me that the mnemonics, still can't say, I don't know why I'm putting myself through this, that I remember learning about, or, from my childhood: slip, slop, slap.
Yes.
Put your sunscreen on, and stop, drop, roll. Does everyone remember the persistent training at school that you'd have to do in a fire to stop, drop, roll? I've never used that in my life, although I reckon we did it, time and time again at school. Welcome back to the Capability Corner, the podcast where we explore what's happening in healthcare, workforce development, and all things capability building. I'm your host, Zoe Yule, Head of Learning and Capability at Ausmed, and I'm joined, as always, by our Chief Nursing Officer, Dr. Karen Patterson. A bit of a different episode today. We have not got our Chief Customer Officer, Michelle. Michelle is at Aged Care Week up in Sydney. Hello to you, Michelle, and good luck for your speaking gig that you've got this afternoon.
She will have found the ice cream stall or
the
something like
stall.
That she'll fill us in on.
We today kick off the first of two episodes that I'm really, really excited to share with you that we've been planning for a little while. Pulling back the curtain, revealing something that we're really excited by, and that's Ausmed's work in the disability space, specifically a project that sits right at the heart of why that work matters. So we have a very special guest on today's episode, Liz Sakal, Ausmed's disability team lead and project manager and coordinator of the Know My Rights grant, which we're going to dig into shortly. The star of the show, Liz. Welcome, Liz Sakal, and I believe this is your first podcast.
It absolutely is, yes.
Well, what a pleasure to have you joining us today. I promise we'll make sure you get out of here safe, unharmed, in one piece, and hopefully with a big smile on your face. Karen, welcome to you. How are you?
Thank you.
What have you been up to?
Well,
What's on your radar?
Just doing the things I love most, like having a read through the new National Model of Clinical Governance released by the Commission, just checking out where it's heading us towards. It was last released in 2017, so it will underpin the new national standards, and it plays right into Ausmed's space in regard to moving from looking at completion and compliance to looking at a culture that supports safety and quality, and that capability building is so much more than a HR function. It's a whole of organisation function, which, sits right in the middle of what we've been talking about through our Capability Corner, that it's not about the silos, it's about the connected pieces, and how do we also recognise the triangulation, the data between the lived experience, which I know Liz is going to be talking about, the practice of the health professional, and then the culture that they're supported by within their organisation. So I would encourage people to have a little read.
That sounds exciting, and I'm glad that's in your hot little hands, Karen. But I'm really glad that we're talking models of governance, or clinical governance in particular. That is key to providers in the NDIS space, moving towards a model of support and care that really underpins the rights of participants. Why this conversation is really important is because based learning, it might sound like a compliance exercise. In most mandatory training plans, there will be something that looks at the rights of participants, the rights of individuals and patients, whatever sector you're in. But what we've seen through this project is that it's anything but that. And I think when people genuinely understand the rights, they feel equipped to act on them, then it really does change the quality of support and care that people received. And that really matters enormously, particularly in the NDIS, as we have an evolving landscape of regulatory change. So without further ado, let's get into it. Liz, you joined Ausmed 18 months ago or so now, around about?
Yes.
Last year. And that was to lead the Know My Rights project. So essentially, Ausmed was successfully awarded a grant and in partnership with Inclusion Australia and funded by the NDIS Commission's grants program. We created, hang on, it's going to test me, 15 micro-learning modules. Is that correct, Liz?
That's
yep,
correct.
Good. Ding. And before we get into the project itself, help us understand, help our listeners understand, who's Liz? What do you bring to this space? You're deeply embedded in the sector, and here's your moment. Introduce yourself.
Yes, so a little bit about me. I come with almost 20 years of experience in the disability sector. So, I really got started with disability in 2007, 2008. So that was before NDIS was established. And I started just becoming involved with disability organisations like MS Australia. And then that led me to actually commence a disability support group for people in my area who maybe were a little bit isolated. So I host that monthly just to have casual chats and also to have a coordinated discussion on current events and current topics that might be affecting the group. So that's just something that is a really big passion for me. And so this group, it consists of both NDIS participants and non-DIS participants, but people with disability. We welcome their, for example, support workers. We welcome family members, so anybody that sort of surrounds them, supports them, cares for them, that also wants to be involved with conversations and be in the know of NDIS, specifically disability as well. From there, it actually led me to seek a career within the disability sector. So more in the learning and development space. So I did join a provider, an aged care and disability provider. So it just gave me a really unique opportunity to see things from a different point of view, which previously was mostly from the participant lens. It did lead to, me being able to actually delve deeper into some of the some of the constraints within the sector as well, and to see how decisions particularly affect participants directly, because then it's, also giving me an opportunity to hopefully provide a positive impact for them as well. And understanding that within the sector, though, there is really genuine care that goes towards participants. It is very person-centered. So once, you're navigating all of the documents, the standards, the code of conduct. I know person-centered is you could almost take a shot when you read that. But it's, it's actually genuine. It's like you can actually see it within the industry. And so it's, you can see that, how participants, sort of person-centered, that care and support is a genuine priority for people making decisions. And it's great to see that. Of course, that's stemming because of the NDIS as well, or NDIA, who's created the NDIS, the scheme. And from there, it meant that I was given a really great opportunity to join Ausmed last year with the Know My Rights grant, which was specifically something that a platform that was able to provide really critical information, I would say, and for the whole NDIS community. So not just participants and providers or organisations, but people like families who genuinely there isn't specific training for them, and also people with intellectual disabilities as well, where, specific built training for them is not really something you come across very often.
Yeah, fantastic. I really love the breadth of the target audience that the project covered, and really excited to tap into that. And thank you for sharing that introduction. It's not something that I think we just hear, but I truly feel that connection, that care. You really are embedded in the sector. You're working with and for and alongside participants, family members, carers, and people that genuinely care about not just participants, but about the scheme and about the sustainability of the scheme and the ability of the scheme to deliver on its intent. That's what attracts me to this space. I'm working heavily on understanding the regulatory landscape and some of the changes, the training requirements in the sector at the moment. And I'm constantly impressed by the level of care of people that I speak to that have worked, as you said, in the sector for a long time before the actual scheme was implemented. And we really hear that connection of purpose and values to what you do. So thank you for sharing that introduction. We were all just blown away when you joined Ausmed to hear the breadth of experience. And it was like we'd been searching for you and we finally found that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And you've just been a beautiful addition to the team. I'm going to really talk you up and say you delivered the project ahead of time and on budget, and that in itself is to be celebrated. But rewinding, tell us, what is Know My Rights? Why did it exist? Can you walk us through what this project was and help us understand just how significant it is?
Just giving you a bit of a background to the project and Ausmed actually applying for the grant. So there was a report that came about from the NDIS. So there was consultations with participants and their support sort of network. And it was found that there was really a big gap in knowing what the basic NDIS rights were, which is really a fundamental piece of the puzzle, especially when you're trying to navigate something that it can be really grey. It also can be really complicated, especially depending on, your disabilities. You're already a very vulnerable person when you're somebody living with disabilities. So it just meant that, this gap was something that the Commission was really trying to address with Know My Rights. So it was decided by Ausmed to actually develop a platform that meant that we would be able to close this gap, hopefully significantly. What we did at Ausmed, we actually provided contextualized training for each group. So if you're a participant with an intellectual disability, a family member or carer, if you're a support worker or work for a provider, and also if you're a allied health professional.
Yeah, I think, just general healthcare professional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the great thing was that we were able to actually partner with Inclusion Australia to provide the content in a co-designed format for people who have an intellectual disability. And all of the cohorts, actually, there was a co-design group. So it was really, for me, with me type of situation, which was fantastic to see. And so because of the connections I have already within the sector, so getting them involved was really exciting to make sure that we were really addressing all of the groups to make sure that we had the correct information that we needed.
For the big picture or helicopter view, Karen, we were sort of really surprised, I must say, when we were awarded the grant. I think we have applied for a couple of grants previously, but it's like winning an award. Never seem to get, unless you're Karen and your abstracts get accepted for a conference, you really never get them. But, we've got a substantial amount. I think it was over $500,000 that or the largest amount from that pool of grants that were awarded. From my experience, it's rare, Karen, but why would a commission or like a regulatory body use a grants program to focus on this type of training, and why was there a need from their perspective to administer a grant on this particular topic?
Well, I think as Liz has just shared from there, rights underpin the whole reform agenda, and the part which is about recognising the individual and their agency within the care ecosystem. So from a regulatory system or from the commission, the safeguards, from there being able to invest in this is really showing that true intention, the integrity of what the reforms are about, and starting with the person and their rights and assuring that the person, the individual, has, a knowledge and the sound and the ground and is the base, the root of it, and then thinking around the elements of care that they interact with. So I think it's a fantastic signal and an investment. And I think for Ausmed to have been successful in that grant, in partnering with Inclusion Australia, it was about co-design, it was about partnering. It modelled everything that the Commission wanted to send out within their signals. Working with, digital format, it's working with both the future and the past together, and keeping that human in the middle. And I just think that it's obviously fantastic for Ausmed to have this opportunity, but it's, having the endorsement of the Commission to be able to engage in this work work and work with Liz, and the way Liz has approached it has been, like bringing the textbook to life, basically.
Absolutely.
About what you do.
A model for what you should do. Absolutely. I couldn't
there was
agree
no
more.
corners cut. And I know, Liz, we had many chats about how do I do this, and how do I, maintain the intent and the integrity of what we're doing in a way that's both respectful to the individuals, to the funder, to the greater community from there. So it was, a fantastic balancing act that, you had to, facilitate through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. Second that. All right. So before we kind of look at, some of the key choices that we made, along that project journey, I just want to ask you, Liz, can you give us an example if our listeners were to close their eyes and just envision, why this is necessary? What does it look like? What happens? What is the impact for a participant if they are not able to advocate for themselves?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, encapsulating it as a whole, and then I'll go into detail, but it's about ensuring that they have dignity, respect, well-being and independence, and that's not jeopardized when they don't understand the rights, because that is the impacts that it will have. When you don't understand your rights, it means the quality of supports and also your safety is jeopardized. There are so many rights that are jeopardized. And so, when I think about it, like there are so many examples, and we found this when we attended the Disability Expo last year in Melbourne as well. There was lots of people coming to us with stories because, as I mentioned, they are a very vulnerable cohort. And so it's really important that they're not taken advantage of. And it could be something as simple as, when we think about what was happening previous to NDIS, previous to the scheme, it was about being told what the next step looks like. And so something like that, you can imagine, is taking away your human right. Like, this is just fundamentally a human right to be able to have a decision in your own life. And this is what is really highlighted within NDIS, within the scheme, is about allowing people to have a choice, to have, the respect that they deserve, and obviously have a say into their own lives, because it affects them. And, even though you have a disability, it doesn't mean that you don't have your own needs or you don't have your own goals. And that's what really underpins the scheme in general. It's about having access to that. And so when people don't understand that they have access to these things, or how that happens, how it occurs, it means that they're going to have a lot less confidence in being able to voice when something happens, and therefore they're going to be in jeopardy of being at risk. So whether that's physically, mentally, and so what understanding their rights means is that they'll be actually able to voice when something happens. They'll know how to act. They'll know who to contact as well. And because having the information is really the first step into being able to know what the next step is, and also to recognize when there are issues happening, because a lot of people just being in that situation won't even realize that maybe they are at risk of something happening.
One of the key parts is that from a cultural perspective, people just didn't, it wasn't bad intention. It was just people just didn't know. Didn't know how to hold the space, didn't really know how to listen, and thought they had to do things, or they had to do it in a certain way. And I think that's, really unpacking some of that is, such an important moment in time, which has implications across the whole health ecosystem. Obviously health to a degree, grew up as, hierarchical and, bit military-like from there. So everyone just followed orders. Yeah.
It also leads to people being able to live independently, which is an opportunity that wasn't normally provided to people, and like you said, not always ill-intentioned. It was just, this is what the scheme does. It's trying to enable people to have that independence within their own lives, so that they are able to be self-sufficient and not rely on people in the long run. It means they'll be better off for it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing the heart of what rights are, why they're critical, Liz, that we all understand and appreciate them, and really, just how timely this project is. So, and, we intentionally made some choices along the content development process that I think, to your point, Karen, mix the old with the new. We had a lot of co-design, collaboration, engagement, but then we had our product development team doing some amazing things with generative learning and really enriching the learning experience with I guess, our secret sauce being that connection between technology and education. So Liz, can you walk us through what that process looked like? You, I think, coined a term person-centered storyboarding as one of the kind of key things that you implemented. But if you'd like to just share a little bit about what the project spanned and some of the key things you learnt along the way that made it successful.
Yes, so I came into the projects a little bit sort of into it already. And so where it was planned, and there was obviously a lot of options of where this project could go. And I think that's where Ausmed sort of led the way within these projects because, obviously it could have been more of a tick the box type training, something very traditional. And, we really genuinely wanted to make a difference with this project. So therefore, it was about looking at, okay, well, how can we do something more than just, okay, somebody sits here, they could just flick through it,
Click.
they could just
Click.
Exactly.
No more clicks. We don't do any clicks.
And so, we really wanted to build that confidence that I spoke about before for all of the cohorts. So it did start with that storyboarding and from the first stage, making sure that we're incorporating and we're speaking to each group. That was a very conscious decision to make sure that we had an advisory group that had somebody from each cohort that we could speak to. And these people are actually featured in the final videos as well, which is fantastic to see.
It's
They're
beautiful.
actually real people with lived experience.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of things that we had to keep in mind. Obviously, the NDIS standards, NDIS code of conduct. You mentioned the secret source as well. And adding to that secret source is also that connection to participants that we have,
100%.
which is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so making sure that we're keeping all of these things in mind. There's a lot of requirements from different places when it comes to training. And even within organisations, there's different requirements that are needed by a support worker, by the actual provider as a whole. And so, involving people from the start was going to be important. And also, when it came to people with intellectual disability, we weren't pretending to be experts in that sector. And so that's why it was really important to partner up with an organisation like Inclusion Australia to make sure that we got it right and it was genuine, because obviously they would also be able to then speak with the cohort and engage people, with lived experience to ensure that the content that we're developing it's not just, once again, going to tick the box, we've done it. It's, do they genuinely understand and is it something that they genuinely find engaging, and also giving them an opportunity to actually create this training that is going to help not just themselves but, their peers as well. So it was very intentional as well when it came to branding and also developing the type of learning, even from the length of the training is something that was thought about.
Very well considered.
Yeah, people just don't have the time to be sitting through, an hour's worth of training. They want something quick. It's using the plain language and making sure that it was accessible. And that's where the product team actually were fantastic as well, because accessible isn't just about, can I see this? Okay, like there's so many, obviously a lot of disabilities that we're trying to enable or provide this access to. So when it comes to colours, how do you navigate what things look like on different, technologies such as mobiles or on a big desktop? There are so many things that needed to be considered, and even the type of language to make sure that like information that was coming through and that people will be able to leave, confidently be able to say, yeah, I've learnt this, I understand this, and I am confident with how I'm going to use this.
Brilliant. Yeah. Karen, from your perspective, what made it successful from a learning design perspective? I know you had a lot of input in the project at various stages.
The openness and the innovative approach in regard to looking as to how do we make this engaging? As Liz was saying, it's not only the length, it's the content and the way people engage with it that makes the difference. So if you're looking at making something that is of a short time length, how do you get your message across clearly and is relatable? So being able to look at it from different perspectives and actually see the level of detail that has gone into the lived experience from each perspective, but also the lessons that come out of that and the opportunity to, as we've said, through a design perspective in using our AI-enabled feedback mechanisms where people can actually practice and they can get feedback and they can talk and when you haven't been, if you come from a context where perhaps as a NDIS participant, you haven't had to talk about what's important to you before, actually having the opportunity to talk, to say the words, like not just say them in your head, say them out loud,
practice.
And then to have feedback to say, that was great, perhaps, you could try, let's try again. You can do it as many times as you want, which is the part which, I'd be interested to know if we can see how long people spend or if they return back to it, because taking the approach about making it accessible and digestible, but if it's rewarding enough, people will come back to it. So I really think that part about getting feedback that you can replay and improve is such an exciting initiative, and I just love that it is from those 5 different perspectives and lived experiences. So from a participant being able to speak up, and from a health professional in care, it's about being able to listen and, reconnecting with empathy and compassion and really considering, outside of that sort of in-the-face interaction, because it really is asking people to reframe their default mode, which from the best of intentions, they want to care for people and they feel that by protecting them and stopping them from doing things is actually the way they care. So having the safety to actually unpack that and have self-empathy as well as empathy to others is, such a gift.
You got good learning happening when actually the purpose of that learning is to unlearn some of the things that we have learned over time.
The fact that they're, the different cohorts have different responsibilities within this program, within this scheme as well. And so for them to understand that and then being able to go through the AI simulations, it's in a guided, safe environment that people can practice and make as many mistakes as they can or want. They have that opportunity for feedback. It's sort of, we've been able to look at, well, what's one of the scariest parts? And that's having those conversations, those difficult conversations. Yep. Absolutely. It's a really fun sort of innovative way.
Yeah.
And, to be able to develop those conversations has been, for me, it was really fun as well.
It was
with the product
very
team.
exciting. I remember I'm looking at the office where I remember you showed me for the first time, Liz, and you're playing away, tinkering with, the prompt that was going into setting up the simulation. I was just blown away. I thought, wow, this is a first for me to see this generative learning technology coming into a learning module and to apply it, as you say, in that psychologically safe way that has such a purpose, such a key purpose of enabling people to practice those conversations that enable them to advocate for their rights was just critical. I'm going to throw a shout out in here to one of our honestly brilliant, very, very talented video editors and animators, Polly, who was, I guess, really just so critical in describing what you have just talked about, particularly what you were referring to, Karen, the way that visually these learning modules engage, inspire, and so beautifully encapsulate the diversity of the target audience. She has a fine arts and illustration background, and for anyone that hasn't done the modules, please do them. If you haven't been Googling them while you've been listening to this episode, please do, and you will just appreciate the colours, the detail, the really beautiful thinking that went behind those illustrations. Was a true collaboration between many of the team at Ausmed, but in particular Polly. Well done, Polly. Shout out.
Yes,
I still am just amazed and blown away by some of those designs.
And it's quite a complicated, I know I mentioned it before, but it's complicated information and complex information that she was able to design this in a really just an easy sort of, it just flowed so easily. It represents that information really clearly. That's definitely a gift. And she
it was
just so that
gift.
people know, it was she actually designed those characters from the ground up. So it was.
There she is. That's her. We're walking past right now. I think and I enjoyed reviewing every single one of those modules before they were released. And I remember I kept saying to Polly, you're able to present something without words. You could take a concept that was fundamental and be able to teach that concept without words, which I thought was just such a skill. All right. I want to get stuck into the word that I said before, which I get a second chance of being able to say it. The mnemonic. No, it's got me.
Mnemonic.
Now, this was one of the elements of the delivering the grant and creating these micro-learning modules that was really, really critical. Liz, what is it? Why did we use it? And can you explain the mnemonic at the heart of Know My Rights, please?
No worries. So, yes, the mnemonic was actually something that was very critical within this process. And the reason was because we wanted to allow people the opportunity to leave and to complete this education, this training. And with the use of that mnemonic, it means that we're able to very succinctly, I guess, contextualize the whole learning with it being know it, show it, act on it. So there's a few things that went along with that. So it's about being able to hear that mnemonic and understand, well, what's this education, this training, what will it be about? It gives you a really good idea. It also allows you to summarize each section. And also it was just a really fun branding opportunity for us at expos and things as well, but actually had a really good purpose and allowed people to remember it because it is a really memorable type of training, I think. And I'm not trying to be biased, but I've heard really genuine feedback from everybody about how, fantastic it has been. And so, this wasn't something that we just made up. This was also something that we definitely made sure that it was co-design process that we went through. Well, there was a few options and it was, I think we had some preconceived ideas with other ones that we thought, this is definitely going to be a hit. But actually with them not landing, and this is why, that the advocacy panel was actually really critical in this process because they were able to give us, a point of view that, we hadn't thought about as well. And it also was something that was being able to be adapted with Inclusion Australia's module as well, meant that it was successful for that cohort as well, which was really exciting. But as I mentioned, it is know it, show it, act on it, which takes you through. So the know it is just, like I mentioned, understanding that fundamental information to set you up to be able to show it, which is talking about, depending on if you're a participant or you're a support worker, but understanding responsibilities and also act on it is the last one. So what are the next steps, and having the confidence to be able to navigate what the next steps look like for whichever cohort you're a part of. So really, that mnemonic wasn't just something that we thought, oh, that's a fun little,
That sounds good.
it has, it has a really, really clear purpose. And I think it's something that's one of the most positive, I guess, aspects of the project that we've received compliments over as well. So that's just true to the fact that, we took our time as well with that in just understanding what's actually going to be the most appropriate and suitable for each cohort and be applicable for everyone.
The hope with the know it, show it, act on it is that it's applicable. It builds on that beautiful Miller's model of clinical competence. We have knowledge, and then we have skill, and then we apply it to practice. And I think it's so practical. It goes to the heart of what we're trying to do, and that's enable people to have confident, positive conversations when there is possibly a breach or a concern around a right, and being able to feel equipped and enabled that can be addressed.
I think, Liz, one of the critical parts with the know it, show it, act on it is that the simplicity of it masks the complexity. We were talking at the beginning, it was about a behaviour change was what we, our remit from there was how do we actually bring the reforms to life to change the way that people are interacting and give them the confidence to work in different ways. And I just think having that, just pathway in regard to building that shared understanding and language, giving people permission to act and to apply, and then also thinking forward from there as to the next. So it's actually not about something I liked it because I felt like it wasn't just about, will you do this in this situation? This is actually about a person's life, and it's actually about the moments, those small moments that make a difference for that person, and how can we as a community engage with people in different ways and enable people to have a voice within that. So I really think the simplicity of it is just so powerful.
I couldn't agree more.
Beautiful reflections. Liz, before we wrap things up, I just want to touch on the evaluation framework that really does underpin the success of this particular project. You don't get awarded $500,000 from anyone, let alone the government, without being able to really clearly demonstrate. How will we know that this has been successful?
So that's a really good question. So at the moment, I have to firstly start off with, giving a shout out to Karen at this point for helping me through that, because that was something very new for me. But it was really, really important for me to consider what good looks like right at the start before having even begun, because I guess that's what allowed me to think about, who was it that needs to be involved within the project and how that was going to look, and what were the, I guess, many sort of goals within the project timeline to ensure that we were actually going to achieve that. So we set up some really great goals, which those end goals were about making sure that we had a certain amount of completions, which is actually 10,000 completions. So in response to your question, we're actually at 26%. So
Woo!
Considering it launched in February.
That's amazing. Over 25% really of the way there.
And then the other, I guess, milestone was about having completions for the AI simulations. Our goal is to have 2,500 completions. So we are 22% of the way there, which is really exciting. So once again, that's really reflected the fact that people have been able to go in, because of course all of this it's not mandatory training as well. So all of it, it's just, it's voluntary time that people are taking, but it does show that the interest and the need is there. And so we take those things into account, but also there's a lot of reflection and reflective aspects of the project, meaning that, we will have a lot of questionnaires and we'll be able to speak with the groups in each cohort to see where they were from the start and where they are at the end. So within the Know My Rights platform, within the training modules, there's also questionnaires that people can complete so that we can understand and get some data from there about how they're going, if they found it useful, and what their thoughts were on the platform as well in general, and the training that they have actually completed. So it is going to be, it's still a work in progress. So we have evaluation, we have a final evaluation report that will be next year that will be completed. Yeah, like I mentioned, Karen was very instrumental in actually making sure that we have a very solid evaluation framework. Like I said, from the start, it was really critical that we understand what success looks like, and we're on the way there.
Well, I just want to say, Liz, from doing a number of one of the hardest things is to convince people they have to think about evaluation at the beginning. So trying to think about what your measures of success are and how do you set up your project initiative for success by building those things in. So I think, again, congratulations. So as you said, none of these, the amount of engagement isn't by accident, it's by design. And the being able, it sounds, co-design just runs off people's tongue. Co-design is hard. It's hard work.
And you did it.
It's a mental model, and it's something about genuinely wanting for it to be a collaborative and giving people space and voice. And it takes time. Takes a lot of time to do that. And you were able, as Zoe said, complete this piece of work on time with all of those voices.
And on budget.
All of those
That's
things.
Important.
So, I just think, and, having the opportunity to talk to you was fantastic. And obviously being able to observe as you put it all into action was really rewarding and reinforcing for me as far as, what I do encourage people to do. It's great to have this as an exemplar of a great outcome.
Absolutely. I second that. All right, Liz, you get the final word before I put in a bit of a plug for where our listeners can go to get these beautiful modules. What is one thing that you hope anyone who completes these microlearning modules will take away?
I think the biggest thing for me is to be able to develop that confidence that a lot of people will need, whether it's a little bit of confidence, a lot of confidence, but that alongside with the just foundational knowledge and information that possibly could be missed. Or a lot of the times it's, for example, with support workers, it's assumed knowledge as well, that maybe they just haven't had the opportunity to understand properly or thoroughly. And so this is like I would call this a sort of cheat sheet to be able to let people be on their way in understanding what they need to. And also I know, Karen, you mentioned just being able to have the perspective of a participant as well, and making sure that it is person-centered support and care.
Put beautifully. Thank you, Liz. Thank you for all the wonderful work that you did leading this really special project, the partnership between Ausmed and Inclusion Australia to deliver the Know My Rights project, which was funded by the NDIS Grants Commission. We appreciate it on behalf of all of the participants in our community, their families and carers who feel more supported, confident and enabled to have their rights known, respected, and to be able to advocate for them. Thank you on behalf of our community. It's my absolute pleasure to see you continue to thrive at Ausmed, leading our disability care team, developing some wonderful modules. Beyond the Know My Rights modules, Ausmed has a library of training modules relevant to the disability sector, supporting disability care workers with their mandatory training, which we're going to touch on in our next episode. But thank you for all of the work that you are doing. And it is really important that in this episode by sharing that the Know My Rights is a national microlearning platform and training series, again, developed by Ausmed in partnership with Inclusion Australia and funded by the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission grant program. Its purpose is to help NDIS participants and people who support them to understand their rights, encourage quality care and support, and take confident action when something isn't right. And the know it, show it, act on it mnemonic is designed designed to really help make that learning something that sticks, memorable, and that translates into practice. So for more information to start learning, go to knowmyrights.org.au. It is a free learning platform. Or contact us at ausmed.com.au, where we can give you access, if you're an organisation, to the SCORM files. If you're not using Ausmed's LMS, you're able to drop those into the platform that you are using. So visit the free microlearning platform, knowmyrights.org.au, for more information. And we look forward to our next episode with you, Liz, where we're going to dig a little bit deeper into some of the training requirements of the sector. So we're going to look at the code of conduct, mandatory training, and of course touch on some of the key things that are changing within the space. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Karen, as always. And we look forward to our next episode.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Woo!